We've talked about nuclear blackmail, we've talked about counter-terrorism, we've discussed innovation and precision, the need for homemade weapons and the example that India set by showing restraint and avoiding civilian targets. There were a lot of takeaways for the world. But Donald Trump is different. First, he claimed credit for stopping the fighting, and now he wants to protect American skies with what he calls the Golden Dome. This is basically Star Wars starring Donald Trump. We'll tell you what the plan is and if it has better chances of succeeding than Trump's wall, which he started building 8 years ago and is yet to finish. Closer home, China is dangling the checkbook again to co-opt the Taliban along with Pakistan. We'll tell you why Taiwan bagged Operation Sindoor as legitimate action by India. How the fight has improved the approval ratings of the Pakistani army at home. Was this their aim all along? To boost military nationalism and secure Munir's grip on power? How India is countering Pakistan by boosting arms sales to Armenia? Will Israel attack Iran's nuclear sites? How the US economy is sitting on a ticking time bomb. Their debt has crossed $36 trillion. How Japan's rice crisis is threatening the government and has forced a minister to resign. How Indian forces have neutralized a man called the backbone of Nationalism. And a special report on the punishing Indian summer. Experts say 76% people are at high risk this time. We'll bring you all this and more. The headlines first. Israel apologizes after its troops fired warning shots as foreign diplomats visited the West Bank. The Palestinian Authority has accused Israel of deliberately targeting the delegation. No injuries were reported, but the incident has sparked a global outcry, with Italy summoning the Israeli ambassador over it. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa to meet Donald Trump. The meeting comes amid a row over the US resettling a group of white South Africans. Trump claims they are victims of genocide. Ramaphosa has refuted the allegation, but he will look to reset historically low relations with Washington. The Taiwanese President's Party expels 5 of its members, accusing them of spying for China. The ruling party says this is the first such instance in its history. China claims self-ruled Taiwan is part of its territory and has threatened to use force to annex it. A pro-Russian former Ukrainian lawmaker is shot dead near Madrid. He was a senior aide to Ukraine's former president, Viktor Yanukovych, who was an ally of Russian President Putin. The lawmaker fled Ukraine after Yanukovych's fall in 2014. In 2021, the US had imposed sanctions on him for alleged corruption. Tanzania blocks Elon Musk-owned X after a police account was hacked and used to falsely announce the president's death. The social media shutdown comes amid the disappearance of many activists who were arrested by the police earlier this week. An Indian author, Banu Mushtaq, wins the International Booker Prize for her short story collection, Heart Lamp. She's the first Kannada author to win this prestigious award. Her anthology is also the first ever short story collection to win the International Booker Prize.
Design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term.
It's not drivable. Go back.
Once upon a time, wars were fought in the trenches. Today, wars happen miles above us. Skies have become the new front lines. Take the recent India-Pakistan conflict. There were drone attacks, missiles flying, and fighter jets engaged in combat. And it's not just about offense. Controlling the skies can decide the fate of nations. And that means air defense, systems that protect the skies above us. So Donald Trump is pitching an idea to protect American skies. He's promising a dome, the Golden Dome. Now, if you're picturing a shiny, gilded bubble over the Capitol, I hate to burst it. But this is not like a literal dome. This golden dome is like a missile shield in space. Think Star Wars, but with a MAGA hat. And what's the price tag? A whopping $175 billion.
Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built. As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful. And now we have technology that's even far advanced from that.
The idea itself is not new. Back in 1983, Ronald Reagan pitched something similar. He called it the Strategic Defense Initiative, which was quickly nicknamed Star Wars. It imagined space-based lasers. They would shoot down missiles in flight. Billions of dollars were spent on this. Models were built. But scientists were skeptical, and ultimately nothing usable came out of it. And now, all these years later, Donald Trump wants to revive it.
We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland, and the success rate is very close to 100%, which is incredible when you think of it. You're shooting bullets out of the air.
So how does it work? Imagine this, a ring of defense, a layered shield wrapped around the Earth. It has three core components. First, space-based sensors, satellites circling the globe, scanning for missile launches in real time. That's the first part. Second, interceptor networks, missiles stationed on the ground and in orbit. They will be ready to meet incoming threats mid-air. Some can collide into warheads, others zap targets with lasers. And the third part is an AI command center, or multiple centers. They will analyze threats, calculate responses, and launch counterattacks within seconds. That is the vision. Now, the US already has missile defense systems. So this will fuse what exists with what's next. Basically, a global shield. It will detect, decide, and destroy before a threat even touches down.
There's never been anything like this. This is something that's going to be very protective. I think you can rest assured there'll be nothing like this. Nobody else is capable of building it either.
Was it something that military commanders asked you for? Did they ask you to do this?
Well, let me put it differently. I suggested it, and they all said, "We love the idea, sir."
It's just like Trump to take credit for this. But this is quite the ambitious plan. And look at the price tag. Like I said, it will cost around $175 billion. The initial funding is $25 billion. It's included in a new bill which the Congress, the US Congress, needs to approve.
I'm also pleased to report that the one big, beautiful bill will include $25 billion for the Golden Dome to help construction get underway. That's the initial sort of a down deposit. And we have probably, you're talking about, General, we're talking about $175 billion total cost of this when it's completed.
So Trump is pitching this like America's Iron Dome. But will it work? Is this plan even feasible? There are two main problems with it. First, the area that it is expected to cover. You see, the United States is a big country. It's the third largest country in the world after Russia and Canada. America's size is 9.8 million square kilometers. Compare that to Israel, which has an Iron Dome. Israel is just about 20,000 square kilometers. That's the size of the US state of New Jersey. So the United States is 490 times the size of Israel. A dome to cover this vast area of land will be a tall order. That's the first challenge. The second one is the cost. Trump says it will be $175 billion. That's a lot of money, but experts are not convinced. They think it's going to be a lot more, and I'll tell you why. The Iron Dome uses an interceptor missile called the Tamir missile. It costs around $50,000 per missile. That's the cost of each missile, $50,000. So $50,000 to take down even a basic rocket. Imagine that for a country the size of the United States, and the cost will increase every year. So $175 billion is a modest assumption. And beyond cost and technical feasibility, there's another big problem: a space war. China has already issued a warning. It wants the US to halt any plans for this Golden Dome. Last month, Beijing and Moscow issued a statement. They said this could destabilize space. It accused Washington of plotting to militarize space. So if the US does start putting weapons in space, it could herald a new arms race, an arms race in space. For now, the Pentagon is being cautious. Officials admit that the plan is in its conceptual phase. No serious funding has been secured yet, except for the initial $25 billion that Trump announced.
It's amazing how easy this one is to fund. You know, some funding is tough and some is easy. When we say we're going to save everyone's lives in a crazy world, it seems to be very easy to get.
So Trump says people are ready with money. It's not clear who these people are, although there is a group that is very interested in this project, and that is the American defense companies, the likes of Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Palantir, and Anduril. They are circling this plan like vultures. Lockheed's representatives have made a pitch using the F-35 jets to strike any threats. Elon Musk's SpaceX is also in the mix. It is reportedly offering launch services. So for defense companies, this is not just a missile shield, it's a billion-dollar feeding frenzy. Also, there's something quite appealing about the idea of a sky shield, an invisible umbrella protecting a country. For Donald Trump, it's the perfect metaphor. So the Golden Dome is also the perfect branding. It is bold, expensive, and more importantly, it is golden. So this Golden Dome is not just about stopping missiles, it's about sending a message to all American enemies, a message of invincibility. Pakistan and China are closing ranks. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar is visiting Beijing. Both sides are digging in, sharpening their alignment on all fronts, whether it's trade, defense, or strategic support. China is no longer sitting on the sidelines. It is giving blanket support to Pakistan. Consider what their foreign minister has said, the Chinese foreign minister. His name is Wang Yi. We have a quote from him. Wang Yi said that China supports Pakistan, and I'm quoting, China supports Pakistan in defending national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Now, this may sound like just another diplomatic statement, but this is a departure from China's earlier position. Earlier, China projected itself as a neutral party, but now it clearly says that it is on the side of Pakistan.
Since the escalation of tensions between India and Pakistan, China has maintained an objective and fair position, calling on both sides to remain calm and exercise restraint to avoid further escalation. We support and welcome a ceasefire between India and Pakistan and are willing to continue playing a constructive role in achieving a comprehensive and lasting ceasefire and maintaining regional peace and stability.
So China supports what it calls Pakistan's sovereignty and territorial integrity. What about Pakistan's terrorist groups? The ones that target India, also the ones that target China, the ones that attack Chinese projects and Chinese citizens in Pakistan. Does Beijing support them too? Did they bring it up with Pakistan? Of course, Wang Yi has not mentioned it. No condemnation from China on state-sponsored terrorism and no commitment from Pakistan on containing the terrorists. And none of this is a surprise. No matter what China says, its actions speak louder. It is not just a shield for Pakistan, it is a supplier. Increasingly, it is a co-combatant. Pakistan used Chinese weapons against India. It's another matter that they failed. The only purpose these weapons served was for Indian planners, who can now make a fair assessment of the dual threat. The next time India engages with Pakistan's military, it will know what it's up against. The Pakistanis, the Chinese defense grid, and Chinese strategic inputs. And we've told you about all of this. China gave Pakistan not only weapons, but also satellite support. This was a real-life demonstration of the two-front threat that India faces. And now China is doubling down. In fact, let's go back to the meetings that they've been hosting. There are two key takeaways from the meetings. One, Pakistan and China will expand bilateral cooperation, especially on security matters. And two, they're planning a new phase of CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the crown jewel of BRI. They plan to expand it. They want to extend it to Afghanistan. In fact, they have already set this in motion. You see, Beijing is also hosting the Taliban's foreign minister. His name is Amir Khan Muttaqi. He met with Ishaq Dar and Wang Yi today, the foreign ministers of Pakistan and China. And together, these three men discussed the CPEC expansion plan. And Muttaqi's presence was not a coincidence. China timed it with the visit of Ishaq Dar, the Pakistani leader, because China wanted to make a point. It is expanding its presence in South Asia, and Afghanistan is the new frontier. This comes after India engaged with the Taliban. Recently, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar spoke to Muttaqi. It was the first time an Indian leader had directly spoken to the Taliban in over 2 decades. And today, China and Pakistan made a counter move. They made a commitment to the Taliban. They said the next trilateral meeting will happen in Kabul. So this is also a message for India. India is now operating in a new strategic landscape. Yes, Pakistan remains the obvious threat, but China is pulling the strings from behind and trying to co-opt Afghanistan. Pakistan lost decisively on the battlefield. Nothing new for their military. They've never tasted victory anyway. But here's the thing about the generals in Rawalpindi. Their magic doesn't work during wars. It works afterwards. Let me explain. Pakistan knows that it cannot win a full-blown war against India. The numbers, the weaponry, the finances, all of it is stacked in India's favor. But a short military exchange, well, that Pakistan can spin any way it wants. And we are seeing that right now. There are banners and hoardings celebrating their army. Army Chief Asim Munir is now Field Marshal. So in Pakistan's alternate reality, they have won. The question is, why does the army do this? Why does the Pakistan army do this? And the answer is simple: to consolidate power. The army is Pakistan's only national institution. If the army is strong and popular, it can hold the country together. If not, Pakistan could disintegrate. And before Pahalgam, the army was quite unpopular. Just think back to 2023. The army got Imran Khan arrested and jailed, and immediately massive protests broke out. Even the army headquarters and ISI buildings were attacked. This was unthinkable in the past. But now all of this is forgotten. Gallup has done a new opinion poll in Pakistan, and this is what it found. 96% of the respondents said that Pakistan had won against India. 82% said the army's performance was very good. Less than 1% expressed disapproval. Also, 92% said that their opinion about the army had improved after the conflict. In other words, the army was unpopular before Pahalgam, but suddenly it is seen as Pakistan's savior. Even Imran Khan is praising their performance. Listen to his statement after Operation Sindoor.
I have always said, this country is mine, and so is the army. I pay tribute to the Pakistan Air Force and all our military personnel for their professionalism and outstanding performance.
This is the same Imran Khan who was ousted by the army, who asked the generals to stay out of politics, but now he's praising them because, frankly, he doesn't have an option. Imran Khan may have fancied his chances against an embattled Asim Munir, but against Field Marshal Munir, the risk is too high. he would be swimming against Pakistan's public opinion. Of course, this is nothing new for their army. We've seen this playbook many times in the past. Face economic or political pressure, needle India, trigger a mini conflict, lose the war but claim victory, and finally emerge as Pakistan's saviors. It is the only way the army can justify its outsized role, both in politics and in finances. For now, Asim Munir seems to have achieved that. He's distracted Pakistanis from their economic and political troubles. He's also boxed Imran Khan into a corner. But what about the long term? Will this military nationalism last? There are three factors to note here. Number one, it has lasted for almost 8 decades. The generals have a knack for repackaging and winning. Losing interest in Nawaz Sharif, oust him and install Imran Khan. Losing control over Imran Khan, oust him and install Shehbaz Sharif. This has been the cycle in Pakistan. And if internal churn does not work, they turn to India. Which brings us to factor number 2, Pakistan's economic woes. Their GDP growth has missed its target. The country was projected to grow by 3.6% in the last fiscal. The actual growth numbers, just 2.6%. Now, if this continues, the army will face pressure again, and Asim Munir knows this. He's been personally coordinating investment and budget plans. So that's the second factor. Finally, the third factor, how the provinces react. There is no indication that Pakistan's internal actors are de-escalating. Who are these internal actors? I'm talking about the separatists in Balochistan and the terrorists in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. If anything, they're emboldened. You see, the Pakistani public may buy the army's propaganda, but these groups see through it. They have seen India punch through Pakistan's defenses, so I'm sure they will be smelling blood. In fact, there was an attack today. A school bus was targeted in Balochistan. A suicide bomber killed at least 4 children. No standoff with India will hide this reality. So Pakistan's best bet is to look inward, stop supporting and sponsoring terror against India. Instead, focus on your own challenges. New Delhi has been saying this for many years, but the generals have ignored it each time. Chances are this time will be no different. As far as Asim Munir is concerned, the standoff has boosted his profile. It has made the army more popular. Logic says he will be tempted to deploy this playbook again. So India must be prepared for it. Vantage continues after a short break.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Jai Hind. Thank you for your time.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you for having me, Anand.
So, how do we deal with this? Now, this is the input coming through. The Kartarpur Sahib corridor is a matter of religious pilgrimage. We can't go back and alter history, because had that line been just 1.5 kilometers on the other side, we wouldn't have had this problem also. But now we are faced with this issue. And in the recent spurt of the number of people who are now being unearthed as part of the spy ring cultivated by the ISI, this becomes concerning.
Anand, yeah, it's a very good point, but I would like to add that this corridor was opened on 9th of November 2019. But the spy rings were working before that also.
Ji.
Secondly, you will find that since having knowledge of law and order, intelligence, and having worked in various fields of the state police as an IPS officer, I know that such places are for mutual exchange of intelligence. It is not that it is always a negative point for us. Our intelligence agencies, whether it is RAW, IB, state counterintelligence agencies, it's like a place. For example, if you look at Red Cross, or you will find that all these places are good breeding grounds, but it can be beneficial both ways. So I don't want to go into those details.
Right.
But just imagine that since November 2019, around 4,14,435 people have visited this Gurdwara Sahib, Kartarpur Sahib. Out of that, maybe 10, 20, you will find that we can say that, not that I only know about two people which have been identified, including Jyoti Malhotra and one from Haryana and maybe one from Punjab. The percentage of such people is very low. I also want to add one more thing, that Jyoti Malhotra only once went to Kartarpur Sahib, but twice she went to Pakistan via Atari border.
Yeah.
So this exchange of visitors is okay, but at the same time, I don't want to deny that whether it is on this side or that side of the border, we need to be very alert on these issues. And now in present day world, when we have like social media platforms, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, it is very easy for our intelligence agencies also to monitor as to what the other person is doing. And I feel that it is like, for example, if there is 40,000 people sitting in one stadium,
right,
and
We've talked about global reactions to Operation Sindoor. Most countries urged restraint and de-escalation. Some openly backed Pakistan, but one country skipped below the radar. Probably because the world does not even see it as a country. I'm talking about Taiwan. Their foreign ministry posted this statement on the 10th of May. I'm quoting. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs expresses firm support for all legitimate and necessary actions taken by the Government of India to safeguard national security and fight terrorist forces that cross borders to attack innocent civilians. Two things to note here. First, Taiwan backed India's actions. They called them legitimate and necessary. And second, they have blamed Pakistan for the Pahalgam attack. Let me repeat one part of the quote. Fight terrorist forces that cross borders to attack innocent civilians. So Taiwan acknowledges that this was cross-border terrorism, not internal militancy as Pakistan calls it. And it's a welcome statement from Taiwan. But what's in it for them? Why would they do it? For starters, engagement with India is a diplomatic coup. We are the world's largest democracy, so India's support matters a lot, especially at global forums like the United Nations. Secondly, the shared China threat. Beijing sees Taiwan as a rebel province. They have promised to retake it, even using force if needed. So China is an existential threat for Taiwan. China is a threat for India too, though not on the same scale as Taiwan. And that is why this latest conflict is so important for them, for the Taiwanese. Yes, China was not directly involved, but Chinese weapons were. Pakistan sources more than 80% of their arms from China. A lot of them were deployed this time, like the J-10 fighter jets, the JF-17 fighter jet, the HQ-9 air defense system, and the PL-15 missiles. These Chinese weapons were making their combat debut. Indian jets faced off against these Chinese jets. Our defenses also neutralized Chinese missiles. If China invades Taiwan, there's a good chance that the same weapons will be used. So naturally, Taiwan is interested. Reports say they are keen to get a sneak peek of these Chinese weapons, their technology, their combat performance, perhaps their weaknesses. And special focus will be on the fighter jets. Taiwan mainly operates two kinds of jets, the American F-16s and the French Mirage 2000s. Now, the Mirage is an old plane. France has designed the Rafale as a successor to the Mirage. And Pakistan says it shot down Indian Rafales. There is no proof to back it up, nor have Indian officials confirmed this. Nonetheless, Taiwan will be watching keenly. And not just them, reports say at least 7 other countries are interested. The United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Japan and France. All these countries are squaring up against China. So much like Taiwan, they will be keen to get a sneak peek, to look at the Chinese weapons and parts that India has recovered. The question is, should India oblige? It's certainly worth exploring, especially because it gives us leverage. A lot of countries are intrigued by Chinese weapons, not just in the West, but also in Asia. You have countries like the Philippines, South Korea and Indonesia. They face constant harassment from Beijing. If India helps them out, it would give us goodwill and strategic influence. But more importantly, it would give us a market. India successfully bypassed Chinese air defenses. Our BrahMos missiles hit Pakistani bases at will, which means that Indian weapons are proven performers against Chinese systems. I'm sure the Philippines will love that. They've already purchased the BrahMos missile from India. Reports say Vietnam and Indonesia are also keen. So in simple words, this is a huge opportunity, A, to build deeper security and intelligence ties with Chinese rivals, and B, to sell some Indian-made weapons. Let's see how New Delhi plays it. Now let's talk about a relationship that India is quietly expanding, a relationship with Armenia. It's a former Soviet republic and a landlocked European country. Now for Armenia, India has become the largest defense supplier. And after the face-off with Pakistan, India is stepping up those supplies. It is expediting deliveries of a wide range of weapons, from surface-to-air missiles to rocket launchers to artillery systems. And this is not routine export. It's a calculated response to 2 countries, Turkey and Azerbaijan. India is challenging these 2 countries, Turkey and Azerbaijan. Both supported Pakistan in the recent conflict. Both are old adversaries of Armenia. So now, by arming Armenia, India is doing more than filling stockpiles. It is redrawing their military balance. Here's a report.
India is arming Armenia. And it's not just about defense exports, it's a strategic message directed at Pakistan and at Turkey, 2 countries that openly provoked India this month. India is accelerating deliveries of several weapons to Armenia. This includes a second batch of the Akash surface-to-air missile, along with weapons like howitzer guns and Pinaka multiple launch rocket systems. This is not a symbolic gesture. India is mounting a tangible response against a rising axis: Pakistan, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. These 3 nations are building a trilateral partnership, one that openly backed Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. Turkey and Azerbaijan fully supported Islamabad. Turkey even supplied weapons. These countries have picked a side, so India is responding in kind by arming Armenia, a country locked in a long conflict with Azerbaijan. Armenia once relied on Russia for military supplies, but after Russia's focus shifted to Ukraine, Armenia has quietly started to pivot towards India. India is sending a clear message. If Turkey and Pakistan align strategically, India's counter will be of a similar kind. If they arm Azerbaijan, India will arm Armenia. But the push isn't limited to the battlefield. Turkish company Celebi has been banned from Indian airports. Indians are boycotting Turkey and Azerbaijan. Indian tourists are cancelling plans to visit Istanbul and Baku. Business and consumers are turning away. New Delhi is matching military action with economic diplomacy. Armenia, too, is part of this broader strategy. By backing Armenia, India is strengthening its position in Eurasia. New Delhi is trying to open new trade routes. India is investing in the international North-South transport corridor. This is a strategic project that links India to Europe. It goes through Iran and Armenia. Turkey and Azerbaijan are not part of this. And that's the point of this project. New Delhi is redrawing trade routes. It's creating alternatives away from hostile nations. Armenia's Crossroads for Peace initiative fits into this plan as well. It's a transport project that connects Armenia to its neighbors. India is supporting it because connectivity isn't just infrastructure, it's about influence and it's about access. By supporting Armenia, military and economically, India gains in both aspects. And more importantly, it keeps rivals like Turkey and Pakistan in check.
Our next story is about West Asia. Things are already tense there. Israel is bombing Gaza again. It wants to take control of the Gaza Strip. Houthis are announcing a maritime blockade. They're targeting Israel. So the situation is already volatile. And now there could be more turmoil. The US has obtained new intelligence. It says that Israel is planning to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. These are Iran's current nuclear facilities. Now we don't know which ones the Israelis could be targeting, but there are two in focus, Fordo and Natanz. These are located in the south of Tehran, so you could say they're almost in the middle of Iran. Both are key uranium enrichment facilities. In fact, Natanz is one of Iran's most important nuclear sites. So it could be one of the targets. The question is, why now? Why does Israel want to attack Iran now? You see, last October, Iran fired missiles at Israel. Israel hit back. It struck Iran's military facilities and air defenses. At that time, Israel wanted to hit Iran's nuclear facilities too. It was part of their response plan. But they stopped short because of the Americans. Joe Biden was the US president then. He did not support the plan to attack Iranian nukes. So Israel had to pull back. Then earlier this year, in 2025, the Israelis considered the plan again. They wanted to strike Iran's nuclear sites. By then, Donald Trump had taken oath. He is known for his support for Israel. So Netanyahu thought it would be a breeze, that Trump would surely back them. But that did not happen. Because while Donald Trump loves Israel, what he loves even more is a deal. And that is what he's chasing with Iran, a nuclear deal.
Iran has sort of agreed to the terms. They're not going to make, I call it in a friendly way, nuclear dust. We're not going to be making any nuclear dust in Iran. And we've been strong. I want them to succeed. I want them to end up being a great country. And I think we're getting close to maybe doing a deal without having to do this.
In 2015, Iran signed the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. It's better known as the Iran nuclear deal. They signed it in 2015. Then Donald Trump became the US president. He pulled out of the deal in 2018. And since then, the world has been chasing another nuclear deal with Iran. And so has Donald Trump. He's been trying to strike a deal to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon.
I want to make a deal with Iran. I want to do something if it's possible. But for that to happen, it must stop sponsoring terror, halt its bloody proxy wars, and permanently and verifiably cease its pursuit of nuclear weapons. They cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Reports suggest Trump has shot down Israel's plan before. But Netanyahu is considering it again, and the timing is very important. You see, last week, Trump was in West Asia. He visited Saudi Arabia, he went to Qatar and to the United Arab Emirates. But he did not travel to Israel. Now, there are no signs of a public rift, at least not yet. But there are signs that Israel is being sidelined. One, Donald Trump did not visit them. Two, he lifted sanctions on Syria without consulting the Israelis. Three, he left them out of a Hamas deal to free an American hostage. And four, Trump reached a truce with the Houthis. So is Israel planning a strike on Iran just to snub Trump? Well, they could try, but it won't work for them. You see, for Israel to attack Iran's nuclear facilities, they need America's help. They need help for surveillance and reconnaissance. Also, Iran's nuclear sites are not just sitting ducks. They are located underground. They have their own defenses. So will Netanyahu attack? The stakes couldn't be higher. One wrong move and West Asia could ignite. If Israel attacks Iran, it risks a full-scale regional war. Iran will retaliate, the Houthis will escalate, the Americans, whether they like it or not, whether they want it or not, could get pulled back in. As things stand, Israel does not have the green light from Washington, D.C., and without that, it will be a big gamble. The world is watching. Will Netanyahu blink, or will he light the fuse? Our next story is about America, specifically America's debt. It stands at $36 trillion. That's the debt, $36 trillion. That's what the US government owes. 36 trillion. It's a ticking time bomb. And according to the IMF, it is ticking louder than ever. The IMF, as you know, is the International Monetary Fund. It has issued a direct warning. The US must get a grip on its ever-increasing debt. Those are the words of Geeta Gopinath, the Deputy Managing Director of the IMF, and her warning comes at a critical time for the United States. Just recently, they suffered a downgrade. Ratings agency Moody's has downgraded American debt. Earlier, the US had a credit rating of AAA. That's the gold standard, AAA. Now they've been downgraded to AA1. And the reasons are the same: soaring government debt, rising interest payments, and government spending without any checks. Like I said before, the US owes $36 trillion. That number is rising fast. And instead of hitting the brakes, the US is pressing the accelerator. President Donald Trump wants sweeping tax cuts. He is pushing a new bill, a bill that is more than 1,000 pages long. It is called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. That is the official name. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It's so Trump. It proposes a wide range of cuts to income tax. Economists say that this would widen the deficit. This bill would decrease government revenue substantially by as much as over $4 trillion. This is projected over a period of 9 years, and the markets have already reacted to this. Stocks have dropped, so has the value of the US dollar dropped. This was during early trading today. In fact, throughout this week, the markets have been wobbly. Investors are nervous, not because of wars, not because of another pandemic, but because of America's own balance sheet. The rising debt is the biggest cause of concern. It entails the growing cost of servicing that debt. Higher interest rates mean higher payments. Right now, the US is borrowing money just to pay the interest. Needless to say, this is not sustainable. Some experts say it's worse than it looks. Billionaire investor Ray Dalio paints a grim picture. He was among the few who had warned about the crash in 2008. And now Ray Dalio is concerned about America's rising debt. He says the credit ratings only tell one part of the story. The real danger is the falling value of the dollar. It had a rough start in 2025, and in the last 5 months, the dollar's value has fallen by over 7%. If this trend continues, investors would suffer more losses, particularly those who bought US government bonds. Their returns would shrink. And the US is not the only one here. Across the board, debt levels are rising. Back in April, the IMF had raised red flags about this as well. It said global debt is heading for dangerous levels. In fact, the IMF expects public borrowing to jump further. And if this trend continues, listen to this, if this continues, the world's debt pile would be bigger than the world economy by 2030. That is worse than the pandemic, far worse than the 2008 financial crisis. So the IMF wants countries to focus on reforms and reduce debt.
We want to see countries acting decisively on reforms. So you don't borrow your way out of debt. You grow your way out of debt. So when countries have that growth potential enhanced, then they can also reduce that vulnerability.
So which countries are vulnerable? There's the US, of course. Its debt levels stand at 123% of its GDP, but some countries are doing worse than the US. Japan is at a whopping to 35% of its GDP. That is the debt level, to 35% of their GDP. Singapore, 175% of the GDP. Greece, 142%. Bahrain, 141%. And Italy's debt stands at 137% of its GDP. So Japan's debt levels as a percentage of their GDP are far worse than the United States. But there's a basic difference. The US issues the world's reserve currency, the dollar. When the dollar weakens, the world feels the impact. A weak dollar means higher prices, higher risk for global markets, and less confidence for in the US leadership. The consequences are not theoretical, they're already showing, with ratings downgrades, market volatility, and growing global unease. But the world's largest economy is not addressing any of these challenges. It seems to be living in denial, and right now it is adding fuel to a debt bomb. A bomb that no one is trying to defuse. Vantage continues after a short break.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you for your time.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you for having me, Anand.
So how do we deal with this? Now, this is the input coming through. The Kartarpur Sahib corridor is a matter of religious pilgrimage. We can't go back and alter history, because had that line been just 1.5 kilometers on the other side, we wouldn't have had this problem also. But now we are faced with this issue. And in the recent spurt of the number of people who are now being unearthed as part of the spy ring cultivated by the ISI, this becomes concerning.
Anand, yeah, it's a very good point, but I would like to add that this corridor was opened on 9th of November 2019. But the spy rings were working before that also.
Ji.
Secondly, you will find that since having knowledge of law and order, intelligence, and having worked in various fields of the state police as an IPS officer, I know that such places are for mutual exchange of intelligence. It is not that it is always a negative point for us. Our intelligence agencies, whether it is RAW, IB, state counterintelligence agencies, it's like a place. For example, if you look at Red Cross, or you will find that all these places are good breeding grounds, but it can be beneficial both ways. So I don't want to go into those details.
Right.
But just imagine that since November 2019, around 4,14,435 people have visited this Gurdwara Sahib, Kartarpur Sahib. Out of that, maybe 10, 20, you will find that we can say that, not that I only know about 2 people which have been identified, including Jyoti Malhotra and one from Haryana and maybe one from Punjab. The percentage of such people is very low. I also want to add one more thing, that Jyoti Malhotra only once went to Kartarpur Sahib, but twice she went to Pakistan via Atari border.
Yeah.
So this exchange of visitors is okay, but at the same time, I don't want to deny that whether it is on this side or that side of the border, we need to be very alert on these issues. And now in present day world, when we have like social media platforms, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, it is very easy for our intelligence agencies also to monitor as to what the other person is doing. And I feel that it is like, for example, if there is 40,000 people sitting in one stadium,
right,
and they all have mobile phones, for intelligence agencies of ours, as we are very technically advanced, no doubt about that,
right,
and I have seen how we work, it's not difficult for us to identify who are the black sheeps or who are working for the foreign this thing. Now these have been identified. I think they have been located, pinpointed, because I feel that during Operation Sindoor, our intelligence agencies, they worked proactively and they could identify these. So therefore, what we need to do is that instead of causing obstruction,
Speaking of crises, Japan is battling a very serious one. They're heading for elections in 2 months, and the government's biggest adversary is rice, the grain. It is Japan's staple food, and its price has remained stubbornly high, so much so that it is testing the Prime Minister's grip on power. His approval ratings have fallen to a record low, and now his own minister has dealt a blow. He said he's never had to buy rice because his supporters give him so much. That remark drew so much criticism that the minister had to resign. But the government is still facing a massive backlash. So why has rice become such a major political issue for Japan, and what does it mean for their government? Here's a report.
Japan has a sticky rice problem, quite literally, and it has cost a minister his job. We're talking about Taku Ito. Earlier this week, he made an off-the-cuff remark. He said, "I have never bought rice myself. Frankly, my supporters give me quite a lot of rice. I have so much rice at home that I could sell it." Ito's gaffe could not have come at a worse time. Rice is Japan's prime staple food, but its cost has been soaring for months. After a minor dip in the first week of May, the average retail price has risen to $29.4 per 5 kilograms of rice. With prices surging to record highs, rice has become a major political issue in the country. And Ito has only added fuel to the fire. He was Japan's agriculture minister. We say was because he resigned today after a major backlash.
I just handed in my resignation to Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Personally, I would like to apologize again for making an inappropriate comment as the minister in charge, while the Japanese people are struggling with rice prices. I believe it was nothing but an inappropriate comment, which was due to my lack of understanding of people's feelings.
I think Taku Ito's comment was not acceptable not only because he was the agriculture minister, but as a human, as if once he took the upper position, he forgot about the lower-ranked people. I think the resignation is what he deserves.
This comes as pressure mounts on the government to solve the nation's rice crisis. The shortfall began last August. There were warnings of a mega quake, so people started panic buying rice. The problem has persisted for months, and now prices are almost twice what they were a year ago. The government has made several attempts to bring prices down, like dipping into rice reserves and importing rice from South Korea for the first time in a quarter of a century. But nothing has worked.
The release of emergency stockpile rice was too late, and it has not yet reached us. So I hope the new minister actually cares about our lives.
Now, the new Minister of Agriculture is Shinjiro Koizumi, and it's his job to drive down the rice prices. And Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba can only hope that it happens fast, because rice is just a small part of the buffet of problems he faces. There's a cost of living crisis. Japan's financial condition is poor. Ishiba says it's worse than Greece's decade-long crisis. And this has hurt the Ishiba government. It was already suffering from low approval ratings, and after the Ito mishap, they slipped to 27.4%, a record low. Plus, last year, Ishiba's Liberal Democratic Party suffered a crushing defeat in the lower house election and only held on to power by seeking support from minor parties. It's not a good look for the party that has ruled Japan for all of its post-war history. And now, the threat has worsened ahead of the July elections when the country heads to polls for the upper house. So rice could very well determine Ishiba's future as Prime Minister. It has already dented his popularity, And Ito's comment is merely the cherry on top of this rice cake.
All of India is focused on the external threat, on Pakistan and its terrorism. But India faces internal threats too, none bigger than that of Naxalism. Today, our security forces notched a major victory against them. They were carrying out an operation in the state of Chhattisgarh, specifically in the Narayanpur district. Around morning, an encounter broke out. By the end of it, 27 Naxalites were neutralized by the Indian forces, and among them was this man, Nambala Keshav Rao, also known as Basava Raju. He was their top leader, the General Secretary of the CPI Maoist. Now, Basava Raju is a most wanted Naxalite. He had a bounty of 2 crore rupees on him, so neutralizing him is a big victory in the fight against Naxalism. Home Minister Amit Shah called it a landmark achievement, and Prime Minister Modi praised the security forces. He promised to eliminate Naxalism and deliver peace. So tonight, let's take a closer look at that goal. How close is India to achieving it? What remains of the Naxal movement? And how important was today's operation? The Naxal movement dates back to the late 1960s. It began from the state of West Bengal, from a place called Naxalbari. That is how the movement got its name. These insurgents are inspired by Maoist ideology. Mao Zedong, as you know, led Communist China's revolution. These insurgents broadly want to replicate that, to use arms to overthrow the Indian state. That's what they want to do. They attack security forces, political convoys, and economic infrastructure. After the 1960s, Naxalism spread to other states as well. Experts talk about a red corridor. Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Telangana, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh. That's at least 10 states affected by Maoism. Reports say around 80 million Indians have been hit by it. Successive governments have tried to quell this insurgency, including the current Modi government. In fact, this government has set a deadline. They have promised to eliminate Naxalism by March 2026. And how's it going? Let's look at the numbers. In 2014, 126 Indian districts were most affected by Naxalism. These were classified as the worst hit, the most affected districts. By 2025, that number has come down to just 12 districts. Most of these are located around Chhattisgarh's Bastar. So India is pretty close to winning this war. What we need is a final push. Last month, the government did just that. It launched Operation Black Forest. It's a joint campaign by the CRPF and the Chhattisgarh Police. The CRPF is the Central Reserve Police Force. It is basically a paramilitary arm of India. Together, these forces, CRPF and Chhattisgarh Police, turned the tide against Naxalism. In 15 days, they've neutralized 31 Naxalites. They've arrested 54 others and forced 84 to surrender. Capping it all was today's operation. India took out the head of the Naxalite movement, Basava Raju. He was born in Andhra Pradesh in 1955. He completed engineering from a college in Warangal, and while there, he flirted with Maoism. By the 1980s, he had joined the Naxalite movement, and in 2017, he took charge of the CPI Maoist. Before that, he was a military commander in the group. Take any attack in the last decade and a half, and chances are Basava Raju plotted it. His death is a big blow to the Naxalite movement. Officials say the group's morale was already low, so Basava Raju's death will make it worse. The question is, how will this fight end? Well, the Naxalites are boxed in. Their best option is to surrender and face the law. If they don't, they could face the gun. Either way, the government's position is very clear. Internal security is paramount. We already face threats from neighbors like Pakistan. We cannot afford threats from within.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jom. Well, big breaking news coming in at the top of the bulletin on the aftermath of the rain fury in the national capital, which saw thunderstorms, dust storms and even hail. Winds went up to 14 knots in some parts of the capital. The capital also saw a red alert.